Welcome back to Paranormally Correct. I'm your spooky host, Sarah, and I'm going to tell you a very scary story today and also have some EVPs to go along with this story, so be sure to watch until the end. This story happened many years ago, way back when I was still ghost hunting, and it happened in the MySpace days, actually, if you remember those. I got a message one evening from my childhood best friend, and she said that I needed to call her immediately because she had something really important to tell me and show me. So I call my friend and I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's so urgent? And she says, I have this friend who's got something weird going on in her house, like some really weird, creepy things. I was like, okay, so she's got like ghosts or paranormal activity. And she's like, yeah. And she proceeds to tell me what this girl was experiencing for quite some time in her new home. And she said that the girl had relayed to her that it wasn't too bad, it was tolerable for a while, and then something happened. The girl was taking pictures of herself in the mirror one day in her bathroom at home, and in one of the pictures, there was a paranormal entity. So my friend sends me the picture, I think maybe on MySpace, maybe through email, while we're on the phone, and I pull it up and I'm looking at it, and I was immediately just blown away because this was a great paranormal picture. She gives me some information on how to get a hold of this person, and I get off the phone and I call the woman who owned the paranormal team that I was part of, Pam, and I tell her about it and I send her the picture, and she's equally astounded, and we're both freaking out. We're both really excited about this because you don't see a lot of this kind of thing, all the time. It's kind of a rare thing. So we were really excited. So by the end of the night, we had an investigation set up for the following Friday. Friday rolls around and we are there. We are loaded down with equipment, all of our collective goodies and technology and things like that. We go in and we talk to the homeowner. While we're talking to her, she kind of starts at the beginning and, gives us a rundown of the things that have happened and how things have been. And she also has 2 young sons, which are not present at this time. They were already gone to stay with a relative. Or she starts to tell us about the picture, this amazing picture that we're all so excited about. And Pam asked, can you show us where you took the picture? We go into the bathroom, and I think on the way in there, we're probably all thinking at the same time that this is going to be easily debunked. This is going to be something we can explain with little to no effort. At no point were we able to come remotely close to recreating this picture. There was just absolutely no way that this picture was an illusion, a trick of light. A lot of people have said that they think maybe this picture shows something hanging on the wall. It does not. It definitely does not. And also, the ceiling was pretty high in this room, which is another thing that we noted. We were not able to really reach the height of the entity's head. So whatever this thing was, we knew at that point it's pretty tall or it's floating. After she gave us a brief tour of the house, she took off for the night to just, get out of the way and let us do what we do, and a lot of people do that, so you probably hear me mention that from time to time. There was 5 of us, so we went through the house and we did our standard thing that we always do, which was like taking reference photos, checking all the meters in different parts of the house, just to kind of gauge what the average readings are, basically. And we also took note of a squeaky board that ran from, I don't know if it was like a dining room. We kind of refer to it as the formal living room, kind of like a sitting room. But there were 2 living rooms attached to one another. The layout of this place was a little funny. I'm not going to try to tell you all about it, but there was like kitchen, a room, and then another room, and there was like an open doorway in between the 2. So the squeaky board ran basically through that doorway. Luckily, we noted that there was a squeaky board because it's important later on in the story. We finished setting up all of our gear. Sometime after dark, we went ahead and started the investigation. We did what we usually do, which was break up into 2s or 3s, depending on how many people were there. There was 5 of us, so probably 3 and 2. We went our separate ways, and each group started their own EVP session. So we did this for a while. The EVP sessions probably lasted 30-40 minutes, something like that, maybe an hour. It always kind of varied. Eventually we decided to take a short break. We had a powwow in the kitchen and we kind of discussed with each other what was going on. There were some weird sounds here and there, but nothing too crazy. It seemed pretty calm for the most part. But at some point while we're standing there, Pam stopped talking and she was listening to something, and she's like, "Do you guys hear that?" She grabs a camera that's still on the tripod and she runs into the regular living room, not the formal living room. And we're standing there listening. We're like, what just happened? What did she hear? We didn't hear anything. And we hear her shuttering the camera. So after a couple of seconds, she yells out to us. She's like, "Guys, come here. I want you to see something." We get in there and she shows us the camera, the viewfinder. And she's like, "I have the camera on continuous shot and I caught something. This is the entity I have affectionately dubbed the curtain ghost." And I call it that because almost every time I've showed it to anybody, they always say, "Well, that just looks like a curtain." But there was no curtain there because it was a wall. The camera was on continuous shot, so if you're familiar with that, you just press the button and it shoots and shoots and shoots one photo after another consecutively. And within 6 frames, you can see an entity appear on one side of the screen and make its way to the other side of the screen and then vanish altogether. Naturally, we were all really hyped up about this because we had caught something for the first time that night. We really had something going on, and we knew that, generally once the activity starts, it picks up and it'll, progressively get stronger and stronger for the most part. Not always, but for the most part. This kind of got us back on the ball and got us kind of inspired to really get on it and try to find out what was going on. We all crowd into the bathroom and we're, doing our EVP session, and we're in there for probably an hour, maybe a little under an hour or something like that, and nothing at all is happening. It was so calm. In fact, we kind of considered maybe ending early that night. The excitement had worn off from the picture and we were not feeling very motivated. So we were going to take one last break for the night before we got back to work. And we're all kind of coming out of the bathroom into the bedroom because they were attached. And Pam is in the front of the line and I'm at the end of the line. So we're single file like a little choo-choo train. For some reason, Pam stopped just outside the bedroom door, right at the point where it put me kind of in the door frame or a step or two away from the door. And I don't know, they just weren't moving, which was not a big deal because, this happened a lot. There were a lot of us on the team, so sometimes we'd kind of, hit a bottleneck and we just kind of linger for a second. Nothing out of the ordinary, very common. And while we're standing there, I take a moment to just maybe kind of scroll through the pictures on my camera just to see if I got anything, because on investigations, I would generally keep my night vision camera on me the whole time, like the strap around my neck, and keep it in my hand, and I would just shoot pictures all the time. So, I would shoot hundreds of pictures a night on an investigation. So I'm standing there, I'm flipping through my pictures, I'm looking down at my camera because, again, it's, the strap is around my neck and I'm just holding it in my hand. And while I'm standing there looking at the camera, I feel like someone's watching me, but I feel like something's beside of me. I don't really know how to describe it. When someone walks up beside of you, or if someone comes into the room where you're at with your back turned to the door, you just kind of have like a sense somehow. You know what I mean? Well, anyway, I look up from my camera and I just kind of glance up for a second, and then out of my peripheral vision, I see something. I turn my head real slow, like in slow motion, like in a movie, and I look to my right. And standing right beside of me is a shadow figure. I firmly believe this was the entity that was in the original picture taken by the homeowner. we kind of gave him a name, you know, so when we were referring to him in conversation, we would call him like the tall man, because we felt like he was probably really tall or floating. What I saw standing next to me was a very tall entity. I feel like it was really thin, impossibly thin. And I don't want to say skeletal, but kind of skeletal at the same time. Anyway, it was a black, opaque, tall figure. And it was leaned down over me, over my shoulder, from the side, as if it was looking at the pictures on my camera too, and saying, "Hey, did you catch me in any of those photos?" I know it sounds weird probably to say that. You guys are probably like, what? But I swear, it just, to me, it felt like this thing was watching over my shoulder to see what I had taken pictures of. Now, it turned out later that someone in the bathroom during that EVP session did capture a shadow in a video. However, and very unfortunately, I never got to see this video. I'm not entirely sure why. I was told about it, but I never actually saw it with my own eyes. So I don't know if that's relevant to this part of the story, but I thought I'd throw it in just in case it is. So anyway, this thing's leaning over me, and I turn and I'll look right at it, and it was just like the most pure black, just like a black hole or something. I mean, the way that I would imagine a black hole to look, maybe, is probably a better way to say that. But it was just so opaque and so real and just awful. It just, I don't know. I can't really explain it, but it scared me so bad that I felt like I was stunned for a second. The only thing I knew to do, I dropped my camera out of my hands without even thinking about it, and I am a fanatical person about taking care of my camera, so that tells you a lot. But I dropped my camera, luckily it was on the strap, and I did this, I covered my face with my hands, and the investigator in front of me, she was close enough that I just like leaned forward and just like buried my whole head in her back. I had no idea what else to do. I just didn't want to see this thing. And she probably was thinking, what in the world is going on back here? And I started whispering, please keep walking, get out of the way. You know, anything I could say, basically anything that I could get to come out of my mouth. To get her to move. That's all I wanted at that very moment, was for her to move so I could get away from this thing, because it was just right there. I think once I got through the door and kind of got away, I didn't really say why. I think I may have said something like, oh, I thought I heard something or saw something. Because, and this is probably going to be weird to say, maybe it doesn't make sense, but in the moment it made sense. For whatever reason, I didn't really say anything about this to anybody when it happened. I mean, I didn't burst into the living room / kitchen and be like, oh my God, guys, something crazy just happened to me. Maybe it's just because I was not processing it. Maybe because it wasn't really making a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I really don't know. But for whatever reason, I didn't mention it until like the next day, or after we left the investigation at least. But we had already left before I even brought this up to anybody. We went ahead to our last break for the night, and after that, we were going to do one final EVP session with everybody in the other living room. We come back in from our break. We all kind of gather around in this room. I actually sit down on a futon, and incidentally where I was sitting was really close to the squeaky board, but I wasn't on the squeaky board because it was probably a good foot and a half away from where I was sitting. So it's not like my feet were on it at any point. So as I always tell you guys, a lot of times on investigations you'll catch things, but you won't actually know until, after the investigation, maybe the next day, you start reviewing your audio, which basically entails going through every single device that you use to record anything with, whether it's video or audio, and you have to sit there and listen to it and watch it. And this can take days or sometimes a couple of weeks to go through it, depending on how much equipment you have. But after the investigation, we found that we had captured quite a few things, very interesting, very spooky things during this particular part of the night.
I had my nose on Mine's actually bigger than that.
We'll call it a 40.
Alright, Jeffrey.
I have one of those. It's amazing. Mine's actually bigger than that.
I like Justin's. At Justin's house, his mom has a jacuzzi.
Not only is it a good thing that we had all of these devices going because we captured these EVPs and things like that, but it's also because there was something really strange happened here at the end of the night. So remember I said that we were thorough and we noted this squeaky board. Well, it only squeaked when you walked across it, but nobody walked across it. We were all sitting down. The audio recorders picked it up, the cameras picked it up, and if we hadn't had all of these devices going, we probably would have overlooked this piece of evidence because we probably would have thought, well, you know, one of us might have been up milling around or something and just stepped on the board, but we didn't. Like I said, we didn't hear this happen, but right after this happened, when we, you know, kind of went back and compared and put the pieces together, while we were sitting there, there was a point where I started to feel all of these weird feelings, very foreign feelings that I knew were not mine. I felt depressed, I felt upset, I felt like just about any negative feeling that you can possibly imagine. I even felt physically ill.
Does anybody else feel like it just got really heavy in here?
Yeah, actually, 2 seconds before you said that, I was thinking I feel suddenly weighted down like I'm in water.
I actually don't feel very good at all right now. I feel really sleepy. So sleepy I can pass out. I feel nauseous. I feel so sleepy I can pass out right now. I'm being serious. I felt fine 2 minutes ago. I don't feel real good right now. That's how it is with me.
Do you want to...
I think I was step outside for a little bit, if it's okay.
Okay, we can go ahead and break if you want.
Yeah.
And then get everybody else in here.
Get all the boys in here.
This creak happens, nobody's on the board, and then all of a sudden we're all like, wow, what changed in here? Something feels off, something feels really strange. I really think what happened here was this entity came so close to me that I was able to feel its energy. And I know that may sound a little wacky. It sounds a little weird to me. I really feel like I felt its energy. We eventually decided we would just pack it in for the night, you know, and call it a night and be done with the investigation. So we started breaking down equipment. We're kind of using the kitchen island as our headquarters. We had a lot of our equipment, you know, kind of set up there and like unpacked there. And I think 2 or 3 people had already gone out to the van to carry stuff out. We were almost done, and Pam's flashlight disappeared off of the counter. She and I both looked all over for this flashlight, and we couldn't find it. We tried to retrace her steps because it was a fairly expensive flashlight. It was something she always used on investigations because it had different modes, and it would go like an infrared or something like that. It was a really cool flashlight. She definitely didn't want to leave it there. We'd made a couple of trips through the entire place looking for this flashlight, and then on the last trip, the flashlight's sitting in the middle of the hallway on its end, turned on with the light shining up on the ceiling. I was not part of the reveal to the homeowner after the investigation and after all the evidence was reviewed, but she did tell me that the lady was a little freaked out at what we captured, but she also felt kind of relieved too because, you know, sometimes it's nice to have a team of people who are pseudo-professionals come into your house and verify and validate the things that you've been experiencing. So I think that probably helped her to feel a little better, definitely. And also, she said that after we were there and did the investigation, things calmed down a lot, and her boys actually felt pretty safe and comfortable at home. And that's awesome to hear because that's what ghost hunting is all about. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I hope you liked it enough to stick around and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you all very much for watching. I will see you next time on Paranormally Correct.